Welcome to the meeting of the Hingham Municipal Light Board, November 18th, 2025. This meeting is being held remotely or in person as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025 and all other applicable laws, temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record this meeting, please notify the chair at the start of the meeting in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, so that the chair may inform all other participants of said recording. Anybody else would like to record this meeting? Who's here today? I guess not. So let us just get right to the business at hand. I want to welcome our colleagues from Energy New England, our electricity buying cooperative and general go-to service operation. Thank you for joining us. And maybe you could introduce yourselves, and you're going to give us a presentation called the Energy Roadmap presentation. And I assume we will be covering what's in our portfolio and what is coming down the pike in the future that will concern us for energy buying. So take it away.
All right. Ken Stambler, Senior Director of Energy Procurement. I oversee the portfolio management of municipals that we manage, as well as the long-term PPA ventures that we.
You are dropping out. Suddenly you're muted.
All right.
Okay.
Long-term PPAs, as well as renewable energy credits management. That's it.
And Laurie Heffron, I'm Energy Procurement Manager. I work for the wholesale department here at Energy New England alongside Ken. And maximizing the power supply portfolios for our clients and their rec management, as Ken mentioned.
Thank you.
And if it is okay with you, I thought we might follow the same format that we did when we met back in August of 24. And as always, it's obviously your meeting, so please stop, interrupt us, and I will answer any questions. And I will share my screen if that works for you, and we'll go through the slides, and then any questions, please let us know.
That'll be great. Thanks.
Okay. With me, as I'm not a Zoomie, so
so far so good.
So it's a little slow today as well. So let's see. There we go. Okay. So the agenda is similar again as last time. We're going to give you some project updates and market updates. And again, as you mentioned, Laura, Hingham's position, how hedged, and a little bit of the analysis on the adjusted net interchange that's been updated since the last time we met. And Ken can review our GGES and where Hingham stands for requirements, and as well as the rec market. And a little bit of the project updates. I didn't include everything that E&E is working on. I focused mostly on where the projects that Hingham is included in and is taking part in. And last time we had mentioned the Brookfield Hydro contracts, but those two have both been finalized with Fife, Brook, and Brunswick, 20 years, 2026 through 2045. First Light, the Cabot Turner's Blend and Extend is also finalized. Gravel Pit 3, and that ended up being operational the end of February. So that's fixed price out through 2050.
Excuse me, can I just ask, the First Light arrangement, does that include the pumped hydro storage?
It's not
conventional hydro.
It's conventional hydro.
Okay.
Right. And they're all First Light's also Chippewa Stevenson, which is also conventional hydro.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep. And Granite Wind, which replaced Chariot Solar. And that's going to extend now out to 2041, and that's going to be a fixed price. When that picks up, it's actually going to start a little less than where the original contract ends and then stay fixed out to 2041. And Warumbo Hydro, Ken just finalized a 2-year extension at 10133, which includes RECs, and it also gives the municipals a right of first refusal. It'll give us time to see how the new transmission line works and the congestion in the main zone. So then when this extension ends in November of 2027, we might be in a better position to evaluate going forward with it or not. And it'd be depending on pricing as well.
Okay, could you just tell us about that contract with Warumbo? Does this relate to the Canadian Hydro bringing?
No, it's
You
Warumbo
mentioned
is-
transmission in Maine, so that's what got my attention.
It's a new transmission line, but yeah,
New one.
Warumbo is the old Brown Bear, AKA
Oh, I
Miller
see.
Hydro,
Okay, because
AKA
I hadn't
Warumbo.
seen Warumbo before. That's why.
Yeah, that's
was
the latest
confused.
name. I should have done
Okay.
in other slides, I have the parentheticals with the former names for you.
Okay, thanks.
And next era, we've done a few contracts for Hingham as well as the other municipals. And you'll be able to see that when we take a look at your hedged position. You can see the good shape that you're in with some of these longer term PPAs. One of the things I did want to mention is that we are seeing, Ken can attest to the pricing we're seeing, especially with new developments, new projects. There's a little bit of a disconnect as to where E&E sees the forward curve for the market and where some of the developers are coming in with pricing. It's been very high, but that has a lot to do with cost of equipment and tax implications. The financing. Yeah, there was one other point. The supply they're still running into supply chain issues. So we would just say roughly how much over market we feel. Some of them.
It depends on the project. I think the most recent one was close to $20 per megawatt hour above where a fair market value would be for the energy plus the environmental attribute. And then you'd have to add another $10 to $20 above that. It's where they want to look at. For example, solar project looking at about $118. Typically, we would expect to see prices somewhere in the mid, let's say $95 to $105 range for that type of project, not $118.
Well, surely the cost of construction for a solar project right now is radically different than it was a year ago. Would that be right?
It's a lot of things. I mean, as Lori mentioned, there's a lot of supply chain issues. The whole investment tax credit, cost of labor has gone up exponentially, and the cost of land, and then just the financing costs. We're talking, just a couple of years ago, you could finance these projects at like 5 or 6%, and now you're talking about 8 to 9%. So it's a huge amount, especially when they look at financing, 70% of the project. So it's a lot.
So Ken, how much of that price differential to where E&E sees fair market value to what the developers are asking is really a hedge that the developers are putting on to cover the volatility that the solar market is right now, given the political situation we're in?
I think a lot of that has to do with what they are looking for their return on investment, and the increased costs that they're incurring these projects up and running, and the risks that they incur as far as getting them, fully interconnected with the ISOs. There's still a risk involved.
Yeah.
And there's additional ISO costs as far as doing studies in order to make sure that they can fit within the current transmission system. It's a huge, the risks have definitely tilted more towards benefiting the ISO and less to benefiting the developer.
Do we stand in need?
Sorry,
Mike, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Are you seeing the developers pulling back or being more cautious, or are you just seeing them?
I see the price being there. I'm seeing that they are looking at alternative buyers Whether they are, the Googles or any of the data centers that might come in, or some of the municipalities that don't truly understand what the market is and they want to buy something green and they're willing to pay above market for the sake of saying, hey, we are green.
So demand and supply.
Yeah.
Thank
Do
you.
We're in a great situation as the municipalities. We've done a lot of stuff early, and that has enabled us to be more selective as we move forward and look for projects that actually fit what your needs are and are close to economic viability.
So do you feel you're keeping up with demand from the munis?
The demand for new projects.
Yeah, new renewable projects.
We're keeping up with everything that shows up, and we do the analysis and we take a look at everyone's portfolios to see whether or not they fit within those municipals' portfolios. If someone is falling behind the 50% for 2030, they might have a greater economic appetite for some new projects.
Right.
Yeah. And the municipals have the benefit of time, so they don't have to have any requirement until 2030, and that's 50%. So they do have a little bit more time than, say, the investor-owned utilities.
Right. But previously it was noted that there wasn't enough renewables in the market that was at a price point that you could recommend that they procure at. I'm wondering if that curve has shifted, and in which way.
It's definitely shifted to being uneconomic. They're basically diverging from the forward curve. So, where you're in a position that you don't need to exceed the 50%, you're not underneath the economic pressure to buy up to meet the new pricing from the marketplace.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's my question. I don't have the impression that we really stand in need of new contracts right now.
Correct.
For you?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
But we do
I'm
look
glad
at,
to know about the outlook, though.
yeah, we do look at any project that comes along to see,
Right.
again, if it fits and what the
Yeah.
pricing is. Yeah.
But we're not in a position where we're going to be forced into
No.
making one of these bad
No.
deals.
No. You'll see in the later slides where you stand, and
Okay.
you're sitting very nicely heading into the mid-30s.
Yeah.
And by that time, I'll be retired, so I think.
We'll know where you are, though.
We'll find them.
And I don't know if you'll find me.
Okay, carry on, Lori.
Just a little bit on the market update. It's a little bit different than when we last met, where when we last met, prices had kind of come down off the craziness of 2022 spikes and all that production and storage that they had. And while the U.S. is doing well we're above the 5-year average for storage and have production, there's a lot more exports where we're hearing that by 2028 could be double the exports. A lot of the managers, when I was going out to procure, they'd see our storage level and they'd say the weather isn't too crazy, so gas should be down. And I think the big thing we can point to here is the exports have increased tremendously. So while the prices have been on the higher end, they've been a little bit volatile at times, where we've seen a little bit of up and down over this last year. But the EIA kind of predicted that the prices were going to be increasing 24, 25, based on demand and the increased demand and the amount of exports that are going on. Europe had less output from renewables, and they don't have the storage they have after their last winter heating season. So I think that's the culprit of when we see, what prices should be going down, that they're not. So it's still driving the power prices here in New England. Weather is always a fun factor. Keep going the wrong. Can't see anything down the bottom here. This is just interesting. These are the gas movements, and they're just the hub on the upper left and the Algonquin on the lower right. And when we showed you these last time we met, specifically the hub, I believe we showed you the little dots, the black dots that you see. Those were more toward the low end of or in the center of the 30-day highs. And what we're seeing here in 2026, and a little bit has to do with, I'm looking at this in November, but as opposed to August, when I did last time. But this is, at the top of the 30-day price movement for 26. And as you go out later in time in the years, we're at the top of the 365 over the last year. So you really can see that price moving up. Same thing for Algonquin. And then on the next slide, it's the power prices, and it's the same theme where 26, you may see it's still at the top of the 30-day high, and going out in time, the current price that we looked at in November, as of November, the forward curve is, kind of at the top of that 30 or 365-day realm for both, the peak around the clock, and that's what we're seeing in correlation to the gas prices. The winter outlook is interesting to compare to last time. So what we noticed for 24 and 25 is that while it wasn't, an abnormal winter, we haven't seen that kind of cold in probably over 10 years, the last 10 years. So December through February were all below average. So obviously the higher fuel prices and the electric demand led to the higher wholesale fuel prices. But if you see that 24-25, the average real-time locational marginal price at the SEMA zone where Hingham is, this past winter was 116.01. And when I presented to you last time, the winter of 23-24 was like at $46 for the average real-time LMP. So you can see that jump. And the hours, above, the max price was 352 there. It was about 279, 280, I think, last time we met. And just the hours now that you could see those cold stretches lasting a little bit longer, where, you have 796 hours, where it's in the middle of about $120 to $200. And let's see what last time. Last time it was only 58 hours as compared to 796 hours that it was in that realm of pricing. So you can definitely see the shift and what the weather and the demand did.
What was the average temperature last?
The average temperature was above normal. It was about
half degrees above normal.
Degrees above normal, yeah, last year. So when I priced this last time, the 25-26 Mass Hub, forward price was about $104 around the clock. And right now we're pricing it out in November, we're looking at about 119. So you get a little bit of conflicting weather reports where NOAA is thinking that temperatures are trending above normal in southern New England and probably normal for northern New England, but the Farmer's Almanac is predicting all New England will be colder this year. So it definitely fluctuates, and you have the La Nino, and when it's a nothingness effect. And so they're having trouble, I think, determining which way it's going to go.
And there's so many different models out there, and they're very divergent as far as the results of those models. So, like, there's a Pacific model that is saying that it's going to be cold in the Northeast. There's an Atlantic model that says it's going to be warm, and
You can't get them to
so you don't know.
Yeah. I was on the news today. They were talking about Stowe, Vermont. They already have 28 inches of snow this winter.
I got my skis out and I got them waxed and all that. There's no lifts running for this weekend.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean that it's super cold. Just
No.
they got a lot of
Yeah.
precipitation.
No, right. It doesn't have to be, actually, you're better off not being super cold.
Yeah.
To have good ski conditions. You want to be in the 28 to 32 degrees. Otherwise, you get just heavy snow, and that's tough to ski in.
This is just a snapshot of your, I believe Tom sees this in the weekly report. It kind of gives you from about a 5-year outlook of your load profile and how your forecasted resources are meeting up against that forecasted load. And on the left, I wanted to give you your winter positions, how hedged you are going out for the next 5 years of winters, and you're about 90% or above for the next 5 winters based on obviously they're all moving targets, but the load can move and the resources can generate differently. What I did put together, and I can send to Tom for all of you, is 2024 and 2025 to date, where you can see forecasted versus actual. And as much as the months might fluctuate, 2024 came out exactly 18% open, 82% hedged, both in the forecast and the actual, even though month to month it looks different. But it's a good window into year to year as well, where you can see the difference in your intermittent resources and what one year can be over another when you're looking at hydro or wind. But I can send that out to you. On this portfolio snapshot, I just wanted to let you know that where last year, if you compare it, it was a little bit more hedged. And the reason for that is I believe in settlements, they have increased your load forecast for 26. I think they took a look at the winter months and may have increased that by 2 or 3%, and the rest of the year, maybe about 1%, and then carried that forward. So that's why you might, if you're doing any comparisons, you'll see the resources. We have a few more resources in there, but the hedging will look a little different because the load has increased based on the forecast.
Is there something about the year of 2930 that causes the amount hedged to sort of something about our contracts, the way they're set up that?
Yes, you have NextEra. Yes, there's a NextEra 3050 contract coming online there, and it's a significant amount. So that comes on in 2030.
Okay.
Right. So when you see that big jump, that's what's going on there. And this is, again, once you do the increase in 26 on your load, this is holding the load flat from there. So if there's any load growth, that can shift as well. But that's the big jump you see there is the NextEra 3050 contract coming on then.
Okay.
And this is just a quick snapshot of your hedged position each year. And you can see typically in the summer months, you're a little bit more open. But this in 2025, I got a little bit nervous with the summer they were talking about it, and it did kind of come to fruition. So we got a great price from Shell to hedge 25 and then 26 and 27. I took a little bit lesser pieces, and we'll take a look at that again. But on the right, that little smaller box with the colored heat map, you can see what the summer months typically look like as an average price LMP of your open, what the open position would pay if we left it fully open. But the Shell price was $64.95, and we're able to take off in 25 and 26 a good chunk of that open position to give us a little bit of relief in case those hot summers come true. And 25 definitely hit. You can see on the right, if you look at the difference on the June, July, and August pricing in the market, 25 is a lot higher. So I didn't want to take that chance for you all because I believe in 25 before I hedged it, I think you were about 30-something% open. So we got that down a little bit, as well as 26. 27, you'll still see high because we don't try to lock you up too soon. So we'll take a look at the market again and make sure that we're just reevaluating pricing and taking advantage of any lower prices because we have a little bit of time to do 27. That was the position there. So you're looking very good going out quite a ways. I do have another sheet that I think I'll probably send to Tom because you've seen it before. It groups all of your resources by fuel type. So I have your nuclear, your hydro, your solar, and your wind, and what percentage they are of your total load, as well as your total hedge point. And I'll send that out to him. That way, if you're interested in seeing that going out all the way out to 2050, that's something. And I can pull it up on the screen if that's something you'd like to see as well.
Well, I think when you get done with your presentation, we would like to see that. I would have to say that sort of the number one question that I get asked when I'm out on the street is, how much of your portfolio is renewable? And so
right.
It's a question with a complicated answer. I always say, well, how much time do you have? You're not rushing off somewhere, are you? But we do need to have that information.
Say carbon free.
That is what I say.
Yeah, okay.
I'm on top of that one.
Non-emitting.
Not non-emitting, correct, right,
Non-emitting.
non-emitting. This was something I just carried forward. I believe it was something Tyler wanted to see for the last meeting, where this is a summary table of it, but I do have all of the data and the charts if you do want to see the big graphs that show all of your resources, how they actually stacked against your actual load. And it has some temperature points on it as well. This just summarizes by season and by year how you made out, how open you were for a total season. So it includes the 3 months at a time, what you paid. So if you look, December 24, 25 was probably the highest price payment. And then we're really seeing that higher gas price and larger exports, larger wholesale prices coming in. Because that's not typically we want to have you more hedged than that. And I'm sure we had the, forecasted hedge was a lot higher than that, but that's where it ended up for this winter season. But overall, very good pricing for your open position. None of those give me agita. And then with the 133 on 20% of your load as well is not terrible. So that's why we try to obviously keep you hedged. But you're in a good, Hingham, I feel, is in a very good spot long term. And when we're done with this, I will show you that position sheet so you can actually see how closed up you actually are. And then I'll let Ken take away his GGES.
All right. So,
Tyler is going to hop on.
Good.
Just texted me. He's in Houston, so we got his time screwed up a little bit.
he can watch the taping.
Yeah.
Understandable.
All right. So this is really our forecast for Hingham to meet the greenhouse gas emission standards come 2030. The black bars represent what the requirements are. And you can see they don't kick in until 2030 when it's 50% of your load should be non-emitting. Broken it down into nuclear, being whatever color, purple, I say magenta.
Yeah.
The solar being yellow, the hydro being blue, and the wind being a gray color. And typically, the nuclear ones come with effects and a little bit of mass CESEs, which is the Clean Energy Standard Expansion. And those actually have value. The effects, which is the emission-free credits, do have some tangible value, but it's not a liquid market. The yellow, which is the solar, and the gray, which is the wind, typically comes with mass class 1 RECs. And right now, those RECs are valued somewhere in the $38 to $39 per megawatt hour. The blue, which is predominantly main class 2, but I think there might even be some main class 1 RECs in there early on, as long as we keep Rumbo in the mix. And main class 2s right now are trading above, and that kind of goes next slide, but I'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
But before you
It
go,
trades roughly around $5 typically right now. But you can see that you can meet 100% of the greenhouse gas emission standards out through 2039 and without any load growth in there. And so even with load growth, you have enough in your portfolio to meet that. And come 2040, I think it's the first year that you are, I think it's 73 or 74%, which is like 2% away from the 75%. It's a lot of time between now and 2040 for a couple things to happen. A, new technology that comes out, a new type of projects that might be qualified, for the state to change its policies, saying that maybe it's not 100% that we need to get to, because that last little bit, or that 75%, the cost of getting there is so extraordinary that it could just kill the economy. So those are things, you've got time on your hands. And so that's why I think that you guys are in excellent position one of the few, maybe a third of our customers are in the same type of position where they are very well set into the late 30s. So,
So just to make sure that I understand what I'm looking at the state of the contracts that we have currently. This is what's
correct.
up here.
This is just
And
everything that you
so-
have contracted out.
Yeah, so one can easily imagine more wind getting built, maybe under a more favorable economic climate than right now. Or I don't think I see much more hydro being built. You can tell me what you think about that. But it does look to me like we'll have opportunities in the next 15 years to hit these goals.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What do you think about new hydro getting built? Do you think there's going to be any of that?
There's potential with new transmission lines coming in from Canada that you could be importing hydro from Canada.
But that's already built, so it would just be newly available.
No, this
to
is
us,
the
right?
the Clean Energy Connect line.
Yeah, but I'm saying, aren't they bringing
hydro.
hydro that already exists
Yes.
in Canada over these new
Correct.
lines, right?
But it might allow for opportunity for them to build new dams in Canada to bring more power in. I don't know enough about the Canadian hydro market to comment one way or another.
Okay.
That's the next slide.
Ken, where do you see opportunities in small modular nuclear?
10 years away.
10 years?
It's always 10 years away.
Thank you, Laura.
It's like fusion.
Right?
I asked about nuclear, not fusion.
It's like global warming. It's,
I
the
think
ice cap's going to melt 10 years away, right?
I think they said if you had the permits and everything in place and the financing and everything was ready to go, it would be 10 years to get it built. So,
And, just for the record, Ken, the ice caps are melting right now. So that we're pretty sure about that.
They're not, but they're still there.
Well, to some degree, yeah.
10 years.
For a given value of there, yes. But you don't see any action in the marketplace around new nuclear at the moment.
No.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't. And there are
Okay.
sites that make sense, existing nuclear sites.
Yep.
Some old nuclear sites that could make sense that have been dismantled.
Seabrook 2 that never got built, maybe.
Right.
Millstone, I thought they were going to retire something and maybe replace it with, but you don't see that happening.
Building a nuclear power plant in New England is going to be tough. I see how difficult it is down in the South to build a nuclear power plant and how long it took Georgia to do, to build theirs, and the cost overruns to build that facility. The appetite in New England, although changing, it's not quite yet there.
Thank you.
Just a little background on the rec market real quick. We have mass class 1 recs, which are typically solar, wind, landfill gas. Some hydroelectric plants are qualified as class 1 recs, not necessarily so much in Massachusetts, but in Connecticut and Maine. And those current market for that is roughly around $38 to $40. The alternative compliance payment, which is the default, much that if you don't buy, you can always buy from the state to meet the requirements. And it's $40 in Massachusetts and Connecticut, which represent, I think, roughly about 70% of the class 1 market at this point. The other states of Rhode Island, Maine, and New Hampshire, their class 1 ACP rates are $60 and above. The main class 2s typically is hydro, but there's some other non-hydro assets that qualify as main class 2s. But all the main class 2s that we have are from hydroelectric plants, typically from Maine or Massachusetts or even Connecticut. Right now, there is a ACP up in Maine for the Maine Class 2 of $5 per megawatt hour. Currently, prices are trading $6.50, so above the ACP. What does that mean? It means that there is the demand for the Maine Class 2s has outstripped the supply, and that demand is not necessarily coming from the requirements in Maine, but from other market participants that are using the New England qualified RECs to meet their own internal goals. So that is why, and we've had a bad hydro year this year. It's down, 5 or 6% from last year's levels. The last
You
thing,
mean the amount of power available from hydro?
yeah, and just it's
How
been
does that
bad.
impact the rec piece of things, though?
Well, because for every megawatt hour
Oh, I see.
produced,
Yeah,
creates
obviously,
one
it's
rec.
per megawatt hour, right? Of
Yeah.
course.
Right.
Shortage of supply of the RECs.
And the last piece is the mass CESEs. Typically, it's large hydro units from outside of the ISO, from Ontario and from Quebec and New Brunswick, as well as from the nuclear and from Millstone and Seabrook. Right now, that market is trading right up against the alternative compliance payment cap of $10. It's roughly trading $9.50, give or take, on any given day. I think that's all I had.
Laura, would you like me to pull up that spreadsheet to show you the
Sure, that'd be
long
great.
term? Okay.
And then you'll send us these slides, right? And long.
Yeah, I meant to send these.
Oh, okay.
I should have sent them to you yesterday. I forgot, but I will send them to you.
Just minimize you guys for a second and we'll.
Hi, Tyler. Great to see you.
Hi, thank you.
Here, let's see. Let's that out and make some room here. I'm getting used to Zoom. Hang in there with me.
I'll get a smart position.
And then share. Okay. Let me know if you can see that okay.
Yes.
Okay. So this just has your annual load where they have it forecast going forward. And I think you can see the little bit of a jump between 25 and 26, like I had mentioned. Probably about a 3% increase in your winter months and a 1% in the rest of the year. And then they kind of hold that flat, and you'll see some fluctuations based on the types of hours in those years and your leap years and whatnot. But then you have I grouped all of your nuclear, so you could see what you have in the different various contracts between Seabrook from MWEC, Seabrook from NextEra, Millstone from MWEC as well, all of your hydro, your solar from Gravel Pit and Nugen. I don't include your behind the meter solar, but you have that as well, which acts as a load reducer. And you have all of your wind units down here. And this is your hedge with Shell, which you can take out if you want to see just your non-emitting. So if you remove the Shell percentage, I didn't do a percentage here, but this is the total percent hedged for each year. Let me freeze the panes here so we can move down.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. My ribbon took over. All right, so if we were to just look at your load and the amount of purchases you have going out, and this goes all the way out to 2050. And it'll have all of your contracts, and you'll start to see some of these contracts, ending out, phasing out. But you'll still have some, I believe, of each type of resource. So nuclear, hydro, solar. And the only thing that drops off earlier is wind, understandably, because not much is being built. But like I said, Ken's always is looking at all this all of the time. And Tom mentioned it before that we bring everything to you so that you can evaluate. And that's why some of the times you may see, you know, April or May, you might look a little bit long. But on the overall, to cover future positions and to get a project at a great price, you may suffer that out in some of the shorter term or the nearer term years. But I'll definitely forward this along to Tom because this is the latest update of settlements has updated your load and resource forecasts. So get this out to him. And
This is great. Let me just ask a question about the new nuclear contracts signed recently, which you referenced at the beginning. Are they are they different from the ones we had before, or is it just basically a continuation of our participation as it was before, just for another unit of time?
some are new. The 3050 is correct.
I think there's two questions there, really, Laura. I think one is you have entitlements in both Seabrook and Millstone, which is you get a percentage of the output. Other transactions that you have through Nextera, who is the owner of Seabrook, is that those PPAs are backed by the generation of Seabrook. And irregardless of whether Seabrook is actually running, you still get the power and the environmental attributes associated with Seabrook during that time.
And if it's not running, where would they get the power to sell us?
Typically, they would get the power from ISO mix, but they generate enough megawatt. Their only issue would be if they didn't generate enough megawatt hours during the year and they didn't have enough effects to deliver to everyone. That would be the issue. And they would have to somehow either, I think that there's a price within the contract on failure to deliver the effects, which again that'd be the one issue where you would have to find another way of replacing those environmental attributes in order to meet the goals, or have to retire the more expensive environmental attributes to meet the 50%.
It looks, just to guess from the names of these contracts that you put in here for short, that each contract has a different set of terms.
Yes, that is correct.
What is the Nextera 3050? What is that?
It's megawatts around the clock, but it just starts in 2030 and it goes through 2050. The Nextera Seabrook and the 10-year one just represents a 10-year contract that I think started in 25 and goes through 34. The Nextera Seabrook Flat is a 7x16 piece from Seabrook. So it's just the on-peak plus the weekend on-peak power. And the Seabrook, the first one is, again, I think it's an around-the-clock piece that runs through 2039.
And we do have a contract pricing sheet for you that just kind of has the titles of all of these contracts and then all of the years and just how the pricing, whether it's fixed and it fluctuates, so you can see that as well. So it's kind of just a summary of the pricing of each of the contracts, if that's helpful for you.
Yeah, that would be great. Yep.
Okay.
Thanks.
I took a quick look before the meeting at your overall costs, power supply costs from 2022 to 2025 to date, and just overall doing really well in that your energy capacity in transmission and all-in power supply with fees and everything is along the lines of $100 a megawatt hour for everything. 10 cents all in is very good. And the pricing of the contracts, you can see why your energy is always like sub $50 a megawatt hour all in. So
great. Okay, thanks very much for this. This was very helpful.
Absolutely.
I look forward to having it. So Tyler, and I can see Mike, but I can't see Tyler. But so Tyler, if you have any questions, just yell, because I cannot see you to call on you, or Mike. Any comments or thoughts?
Thank you. I mean, I was wondering similar things to yourself and the differences between the nuclear contracts. And I just generally, curious, but maybe this is more of a question for Tom because he's making the decisions, but how we kind of determine when a good time to contract is, and if there are things that um, differentiate, maybe now from other time periods where it was a favorable time to contract or unfavorable time to contract, and sort of what we're hearing from the generators out there. Does it seem like they want to sign contracts with load serving entities, or are they just kind of holding on to their generation, waiting for higher prices?
I think, from my part, I'm always working with E&E to look at, what's available. So E&E will come to me with what's available, and how does it fit into the contract? I mean, into our portfolio. And it's really a discussion with E&E as to whether this makes sense or not. Ken could probably talk.
I mean, I think that if you're looking at long-term PPAs, Tyler, whether there could be a difference in view as far as what the forward curve is, right? So we have our own viewpoint on what the forward curve is. We also take a look at, usually several times a year, we take a look at how our forward curve represents relative to the marketplace. So we will go out and request pricing from several different suppliers to get their viewpoint on a 10-year PPA or 10-year power price, just to kind of gauge, is our forward curve way off the mark relative to what the marketplace is looking at? When we worked on several PPAs where we've just came to the conclusion that our viewpoint of what the forward curve is versus what the developers was, there's just too large of a gap to fill in order to make sense for our municipal buyers to enter into those contracts. I couldn't economically justify paying that much of a premium for a non-emitting resource. So, and that's how we look at things. And we've done a lot of deals over the past, I don't know, I've been here 6.5 years. A lot of deals, at least over the 6.5 years that I've been here, where we have been very cognizant of making sure that the value, the green premium that we pay relative to the forward curve represents at least market, or at least very close to market. So we don't want to end up paying, $20 above market for just to buy into a green project.
And other things that might at least prompt us to look at something and consider it, things that'll come down the pike, whether it's by the state, considering that investor-owned utilities may be able to count effects from the nuclear units towards their green requirements, and that, we want to make sure that our municipals have what they want in nuclear. So we make sure we present that to them first and try to get that first before, if it should come down the pike that the investor-owned utilities can claim effects part of their portfolio. We foresee that maybe that could, start to shrink that supply to the municipal. So we always bring it to the municipals to say, hey, take a look at this. And to Laura's point about, whether or not there's any more hydro that's going to be built. I think when a new hydro project comes across Ken's desk, that's why we'll put those out there as well, because in order to diversify your portfolio a little bit, and we don't see any new hydro coming down the pike, we might look at that as well and say, hey, we don't see any more getting built. We might want to take a serious look at this. And if it makes sense, if you can use it, and if the pricing doesn't skew your portfolio and your prices and your budget, then it might be something that makes sense. So those other factors kind of weigh in as that on those things as well.
I've
We
got
haven't looked at anything. We don't look at anything emitting, any resource that would be an emitting resource. we haven't looked at any of that in my time here.
Well, what is that
Um,
shell contract though that's the hedge?
That's a short
That's it.
bilateral to
Yeah.
fill in any gaps.
Short-term hedge.
Hedging,
To
we
close.
do, we'll buy for hedging, but on a
Right.
long-term contract, we wouldn't look at
Right, okay. So the shell contract is really short for
So
No,
three, I think
it's
it's
3
3
3
years.
years? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so it's actually
I
just
see.
3 summers. It was just June through August for 25 and 6 and July and August for 27. So it's just some small
I see.
pieces to close some positions that were a little too open.
I have a
Yeah, you should.
couple more questions on on the contracts that I'm curious about and how we kind of approach valuation. The first part is I'm wondering about the green premium that I heard that we're paying, which I'm wondering for a non-emitting resource, which gets where we're buying the power and RECs. I would
Yep.
assume that the green premium we're paying should be equal
Value
to
of the REC.
the REC value and not
Correct.
over that, correct?
Correct. That is correct.
Okay. And
Yeah,
then
so basically what we do is we take our forward curve, we take the P50 data from the resource to figure out, because some resources such like solar only runs predominantly April through September. You don't get the full benefit of these Jan Feb's higher prices during that time period. So it typically trades at a discount to the forward curve. So even though the forward curve might be $70, we only value the energy aspect of that from that solar plant at like $61. So we take the $61 of that 61 plus, let's say, $35 for the green attribute to come up with our $96 power that we think is fair market value for that type of asset.
okay, that makes sense. I guess that a little bit speaks to my second question, which was like, let's say we're looking at a wind resource where typically wind blows in the off-peak hours as opposed to the peak hours. So if we're looking at just the energy itself, I would expect that we would also pay below a baseload market value for that wind power. Is that correct?
It is pretty close to the round-the-clock price for the year. And the reason why is that it does blow a fair amount during the months of Dec, Jan, and Feb. And that's when even though, it's off-peak, the off-peak prices during that time period are still, given the current curve of $70, the off-peak during Dec, Jan, and Feb will probably be still north of about $100. And so that kind of brings things up, and it typically does not blow that much during, I think it's September, October, August is July and August are kind of mixed. So we take in the P50 data. We have models that take a look at the forward curve and apply a hourly shape to that forward curve, come up with how we evaluate the energy portion of that project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any
Yeah.
other questions or comments from anyone who's on the call today?
I had one follow-up question on the pumped hydro at First Light. Where does
Yep.
that contract moving forward stand?
The pump hydro, we don't have any contracts with First Light on the pump hydro. We have looked at structures with them to take advantage, to see whether or not we can utilize the pump storage. Again, and think of it as almost like a battery, really, because you're taking
Right.
off-peak
exactly.
power and you're storing it at the top of a mountain with the hopes that there's going to be a huge price spread between the on-peak and the off-peak. We just have not found the value. We don't see the value in that transaction, or as of recently, we haven't seen the huge spread between the on-peak and the off-peak prices to justify paying the type of premium demand charge that First Light is looking for. But it's something that we continually look at, and probably about every other year we do sit down with them and try to figure out how has their perception or our perception of the marketplace going forward changed to make it work, or at least get close to getting value.
And similar question on the storage side. What about battery storage?
I mean, I think that, we have, the battery behind the meter at Hingham. Again, in front of the meter, it's still, there's not a lot being built. So that kind of tells me that there's the demand for that type of project just is not there to justify the capital cost and the operating expenses. There are markets for it, and the Clean Peak standard is probably the best use for that type of product.
Mm-hmm.
Municipals don't.
But we've looked at it. Actually, I've not seen any decent pricing from any of the battery developers on an in front of the meter battery that makes sense.
Okay.
Do they just curious how you get the information? Do you poll the battery developers? They come to you with their data? How do you
A
connect
lot of
with
them
them?
come to us.
Uh-huh.
They come to us, or they've approached a municipal and the municipal comes to us and asks
Uh-huh.
us to review something.
A thing that I had, talked to Tom about recently is Tom is open to considering, more battery storage for us.
Mhm.
Should we just put out an RFP and see what happens? Or do you think that's a waste of time, given the current development of the industry?
The timing might be a little tough. I think a lot of the developers I know the last one Tom was speaking with was the investment tax credit was a big issue.
Mm.
So I think if they were under construction or had started by this fall, I believe it was, then they were in good shape for that. So a big portion of this is the financing that the developers have. So if they don't have, there's so much that goes into it, whether it's the leasing the land or a pilot payment and then the financing. So I don't know where the ITC stands right now, if it's been yanked or. But that was the last time I sat down with Tom, and I don't know, Tom, if it was Convergent or Kearsarge that we were looking at, but
I think that's New Leaf that,
New Leaf.
and
Okay.
we're still, I mean, I haven't heard much as of late, but
Okay.
they were still talking about it. I don't think it's
Okay.
dead yet.
I know that it was, of concern to him to get moving quickly and order transformers or order what he needed to order to get going. But I think that's what you're going to get right now. Is I think they may be trying to see where things shake out as far as the investment tax credit goes, and a lot of I know that I don't know how I feel like this is going to be a little bit slower, but the ability to build or purchase the equipment domestically versus overseas. So,
And I think the key element is really sites. Do we have sites available?
Trying to find the sites.
That's where we would have to start. Is where would we put it in the first place?
Yeah, because a lot of developers will come to us and they want us to aggregate or they want us to go look and survey, and I'm like, that's not what we do. We're not here to I think everybody salivates over the fact that if they know the revenue stream from shaving a transmission peak. They know what those rates are in ISO. I mean, if they shave a megawatt off your peak, that's over $15,000 a month. So they know what that is. So I think they're all trying to find a way to fit it, make it work. And they try to make, Energy New England that person. And like, we advocate for our municipals. We're not here to, for the battery developer. So if you come to us or some of our municipals come to us, then we definitely analyze and we'll tear it apart and negotiate on your behalf. But other than that, we get them from all different, people that know us, worked with us before or anything like that.
I mean, I think that if you wanted to do an RFP, I think that you'd have to have a clear site in mind.
Yep.
And know what the upfront costs that Hingham might have to incur in order to get that site ready to have a battery. And then at that point, it might make sense to come out and say, we have a site. This is what what Hingham's willing to put up front for cost for, putting the battery in. What can you provide as far as the shared savings going forward?
Mhm. Yeah, I've just been trying to make up my mind whether it's even worth the effort to go out and, I mean, we would obviously be looking at sites owned by the town. So then that's a conversation.
Yeah.
And so the question is, a certain amount of effort involved there. And is this just like the worst time in the world to consider even beginning, or is it worthwhile? That's what I'm trying to make up my mind about that.
I mean, we've seen a couple of developers still trying to push batteries through, whether it's, Light Source, Convergent,
Light Source has
Kearsarge,
been working with-
all those players are still out there.
Light Source has been working.
I think that having a clear site and clear direction is going to be the key. And I think that probably, Steve will be key as far as understanding, having gone through the last time we did an RFP for the battery in Hingham.
Okay, well, we will keep thinking about it. Thanks for your input. I appreciate that. Anything else that people want to raise before we thank our colleagues and wish
Yes,
them a happy
talking about our
Thanksgiving?
battery, how happy have you been with its performance?
It's
The truth.
Yeah.
Well, I think having it in the regulation market degraded it severely. It seems to be running a little bit better, a little bit smoother. I think Kruger is hopefully working out the kinks, especially with the comms. That can be a big problem. And when you have, three parties trying to figure out if it's the battery or if it's just the communications, that's difficult. But it's supposed to produce 6,000 megawatt hours. And now it's probably 4,800, which is why I was saying to Tom and Laura at the beginning why we might run it at a megawatt, or it should be able to put out 2 megawatts for 3 hours, but we'll run it in different stacks to make sure we try to hit the peak. So it takes a little bit of finagling to try to make sure we hit that peak for you. So I'm not an advocate of putting them in other markets unless there's a different technology. But with the lithium ion batteries, the more you're starting, stopping, and using it for regulation, a lot of charging and discharging constantly, it degrades the battery. So if there's not part of the contract to augment the battery on the side of the developer, because we've seen them offer that as well, where they'll keep battery augmented and make sure that it can produce that output, then I'm not a proponent of having it in the wholesale markets. I'd rather have it behind the meter and shave your capacity and transmission peaks. And that may change as the markets change. The latter half of 28 is going to a prompt seasonal capacity market. So who knows what the design will be? Capacity could increase, be more costly. Right now, it's been driven down because there's been enough capacity in the market. And the other part of offering it into the markets is if you play in the capacity market with ISO and you don't perform, the penalties are huge. So you'd have 2 megawatts that you're supposed to supply times $9,000 an hour of every time you.
That's increasing.
And that's increasing. So the penalties far outweigh any benefit if there is any. I feel like having it behind the meter and doing everything you can do to shave your annual peak and your monthly transmission peaks is the biggest bang for your buck.
Question there. Looking at PJM's capacity markets and, if New York had a long-term construct, they would probably be worse off. Those capacity markets are obviously hitting the caps for the last 3 auctions. Do we foresee that type of spillover into New England as a potential, and how might that change our viewpoint?
I'll be truthful. I'm not an expert on that, Tyler. I mean, I haven't played in the capacity market in a long time. Gil Mayed, who basically runs our operations side, is not in the office, but it's something we could probably run by him. If you send us the question, we can send it off to him. And Dave Kavanaugh would be a better candidate for answering those questions.
From what Dave Kavanaugh has said, at least initially, when the capacity market changes over, I don't think he sees it, skyrocketing, but because he feels there's enough capacity, but his concern lies in market design and whether, generating stations can firm up gas transportation contracts and firm up their pricing. And I feel like that's what's going to drive pricing up. And then it's more of a performance issue. I don't think New England is short on capacity, but like, as Ken said, Dave would be a great resource to touch on that. And he can answer you in detail on any questions you might have on that.
Okay.
I know the New York market a little bit, and yes, the downstate capacity market in New York is very constrained, or at least it had been in the past. The upstate market, really not so much. And so you would see a huge divergence between capacity prices in New York City and Long Island versus capacity prices up in Syracuse, New York. So if we're not, I could see a situation during the winter time where the market is constrained because we don't have the firm pipeline capacity to support the natural gas units. That might be a period of time where capacity prices go to the cap or go up higher. But then the rest of the time of the year, we have adequate capacity on the pipelines to support the current portfolio of generating assets in New England.
Yeah. I mean, in the other ISOs, the capacity market shortages are all being driven by the new large data center loads that are
We're not getting those here.
Yeah, they would be silly if they were, but I was just curious to hear if you'd had heard about that.
I don't see data centers where you take a look at, where retail energy prices are in New England relative to other parts of the country. I don't see it as a driving factor. I mean, I've seen enough times where there's been talk by these data center developers, and push comes to shove, they're not ready to sign on the dotted line to develop a huge asset in Western Mass or in Connecticut or something like that.
Makes sense.
Keep our prices high. No, wait, that doesn't make any sense. But that's how it works. Okay, any other questions or comments for Energy New England while we have them? No, well, thank you very much, Ken and Lori. That was really helpful, and look forward to looking stuff over in greater detail and offline. And thanks again. We really appreciate all your help.
Thanks,
No problem.
Laurie.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank
Have
you.
a nice
All right.
Thanksgiving.
Take care.
Thank you
Thank
both.
you.
You too.
All right.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Okay, the next, well, first let me ask,
Yeah,
Barbara
fine.
team,
Fine.
do people have, are running up against deadlines?
I do.
Okay. Do you have how much time do you have, Mike?
I should be getting on the
You
road to
should be-
pick up kids very
Oh,
shortly.
okay. How about we approve the minutes because they tend to stack up no? You gotta go. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I think we're gonna just, any updates we have to have, Tom, that's anything that's really burning.
Not really, just the transmission project's completed, the insulated
Oh, great.
changeout. So that is completed. We're back on 2 lines. So that was a great
Excellent.
project to have finished. And other than that, no, we can continue next month.
Excellent.
Okay. So I guess we're going to have to move the rest of our agenda to next month. Thank you for the research that you did, Brianna. That was really interesting, and that's going to be very helpful next month, but thank you. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, Tyler?
Aye.
Frank?
Aye.
Laura? Aye. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.